Great. Thanks very much for organizing this. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully all will go well. Hang on. We're nearly there. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see a rather beautiful picture of some apple blossom and a bumblebee. In a few weeks' time, that you might be able to see that for real. So I'm going to talk about insects today, kind of my favorite subject, why they're important in agriculture and for other reasons. The evidence that they're in decline, which I won't dwell on for too long, but it's important. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we might ensure a future for insects and for ourselves. Okay, so I thought I know this is an insects network, so perhaps everybody listening already knows a ton about insects and doesn't need this, but I thought I'd start by just giving you a little bit of preamble as to where insects come from, going back in time. Insects have been around a really long time. They're about 480 million years old, amongst the first creatures to crawl out of the sea onto land. And so they've been around an awful long time. They've survived all the previous mass extinction events. They've diversified and speciated into a really extraordinary range of sizes and colors and so on. Back in the Carboniferous period, they grew much larger than they do today, and there were giant flying dragonflies with wingspans of about 60 or 70 centimeters. Incidentally, insects were the first creatures on the planet to sing. Probably the first creature, well, they were certainly the first creatures to take to the air. And in fact, they had the air to themselves for about 170 million years until pterodactyls came along. Anyway, as I say, insects are incredibly diverse. They make up about 70% of all known species. We've named 1.1 million different species of insect. And what's really cool is it's estimated that there are maybe another 3, 4, 5 million that we haven't yet discovered, that we haven't even given a name to, which is really mind-boggling when you think about it. We haven't discovered the majority of life on our own planet yet. Anyway, so I think insects are amazing, and I'm going to explain why. But I'm painfully aware most of the time that I'm not alone, but in a small minority of people that like insects. Most people don't. In fact, I think that's kind of epitomized quite nicely by this sign that was put on it's actually on the campus of the University of South Wales last summer. Big red sign warning flying insects in the area. Obviously the top half of the sign's in Welsh if you're confused. So it sort of gives this impression that flying insects are something to be terrified of, run away. There may be some butterflies or bees around, which I find really sad because, there are virtually no insects in the UK that are any danger to anybody at all. Insects are tiny little creatures, mostly entirely benign. All this was some little flying ants. And yet it sends the message to people that they should be frightened of insects. And sadly, most people's reaction to an insect is, if it buzzes near them, is to try and kill it. They think it's going to sting them or bite them or something, which is very sad. Because whether you like them or not, we need insects. They perform all sorts of important roles in ecosystems. So they're food for the majority of other non-insect species on the planet. Almost all birds eat them either as part of their diet or all of their diet, as do bats and freshwater fish and reptiles and amphibians and so on and so on. And so if insects were to go, then all of these other things would go too. They depend on them for food. But insects do tons of other things in ecosystems aside from just being dinner. They're really important biocontrol agents in farming. Things like ladybirds and hoverflies and lacewings and so on. Really important in providing natural control of outbreaks of crop pests. But there are Lots of other things insects do as well, things like recycling of dung. It's not a glamorous task by any means, but dung beetles are really important, and we kind of